Meanwhile, Meghan Markle has broken her silence on the infamous twerking video she posted to her Instagram last week while in labour with daughter Lilibet. Here's what she had to say.
What if the greatest royal scandal of the decade wasn't about betrayal, exile, or even revenge, but about something far more intimate? Something no one ever saw coming? For years, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have built their post-palace image on authenticity, privacy, and independence. But now, a woman with no royal ties, no tabloid history, and no agenda, known only by the initials DL, has stepped into the spotlight. And what she claims could unravel everything.
Markle, I would argue, probably really doesn't value fatherhood all that much. She talks constantly how important it is to be a mother.
She says she's the real birth mother of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, not a donor, not a surrogate in a clinical sense, but the full biological mother, handpicked, paid off, and then erased from history. And now she's done staying silent. And unlike the many conspiracy theories that swirl online and fade into the digital abyss, this woman isn't hiding behind a shadowy curtain or filtered-out voice modulator. She's front and center, calm, poised, showing her face, and she's backing up her claim with hospital records, signed NDAs, and financial transactions. Let that sink in for a moment, because it means that everything we thought we knew about the Sussex children, about Meghan's public pregnancies, and even about the royal line of succession itself, might be a manufactured illusion. Even if a fraction of what she's saying is true, the implications aren't just personal, they're constitutional. So, how did this woman come into the picture? Why now? What does she know that's got Harry and Meghan's legal team reportedly scrambling behind the scenes? And why is the palace staying completely silent? This isn't gossip. This isn't tabloid drama. This is something deeper, something dangerous. And it all begins with the woman now threatening to expose the monarchy's best-kept secret. DL, 2 letters that no one in the royal orbit had ever heard until now, has dropped what may be the most devastating revelation the monarchy has faced in modern memory. And she's not just talking. She's naming dates, naming places, and flashing evidence. She says she wasn't just a part of the Sussex story, she was the story. A woman allegedly chosen behind closed doors in late 2018 through a discreet surrogacy agency based in California. A woman reportedly offered not just generous compensation, but an ironclad promise of permanent anonymity. A woman who says she was kept in isolation, away from family, friends, and media. Not for her safety, but to maintain a facade. According to her, Meghan and Harry's team orchestrated the entire thing, from medical visits to housing, even psychological support. But what they couldn't orchestrate was her conscience. Because after the birth of not just one, but both of the Sussex children, DL says something changed. She describes battling postpartum preeclampsia, a condition that can lead to seizures, organ failure, and death, with little to no follow-up care from the people who had once promised her safety and dignity. "I wasn't a person to them," she reportedly told a journalist in a closed interview. "I was a vessel." And that's when she began keeping everything. Every text, every email, every receipt, appointment logs, medical documents, even the NDA that was allegedly signed by Meghan's legal team just weeks before Archie's due date. Now, let's be clear, these are massive claims. And yet, she's not backing down, not even slightly. In fact, she's gone a step further. DL has publicly offered to testify under oath and submit to a full DNA test, provided it's conducted by an independent third party, not a hand-picked royal physician. It's that level of calm defiance that's rattling people. Because this isn't someone looking for a payout. She says she's already been paid. This is someone who says she was used and is now demanding to be recognized not just as a body, but as the mother of 2 royal children. And the real kicker? The timing. Her claims don't come randomly. They arrive just as Meghan and Harry's public reputation is slipping, just as their media deals are stalling, brand partnerships are hesitating, and even their most loyal supporters are starting to ask hard questions. So why now? According to her, it's simple. The silence from Meghan, from Harry, from the palace became too loud to ignore. And the moment she made her story public, everything started to shift. For years, whispers about Meghan's pregnancies have lived in the shadows of the internet, brushed off as fringe conspiracies or dismissed by the press as wild speculation. But now, with DL stepping forward and offering hard documentation, those whispers are suddenly sounding a lot more like alarm bells. Let's rewind to 2019, when Meghan was pregnant with Archie. Or at least, that's what we were told. The world was watching closely, and yet something always felt off. Videos circulated online showing her baby bump behaving in ways no one could explain. In one clip, Meghan bends down and her stomach folds inward like a cushion bending at the seam. Another showed her bump shrinking and growing in size within days, depending on what outfit she wore. Not gradually, as pregnancy usually does, but dramatically, overnight. At the time, any mention of this was met with harsh pushback. Critics were labeled conspiracy theorists. The palace gave no real explanation, just vague reassurances that everything was normal. But the clips never stopped circulating. They were paused, zoomed in, played frame by frame. And now, they're being viewed in a whole new light. Because if DL's claims are true, that Meghan was never pregnant and instead orchestrated a secret surrogacy, then those clips may not be glitches. They may be evidence. Even body language experts have weighed in. Some noted how Meghan seemed to forget which hand to cradle her bump with, switching frequently in public appearances. Others observed her walking with a full gait, not the careful, staggered pace pregnant women tend to develop late in term. And then, there were the moments where she seemed to hold her bump in place, as if adjusting a prop. Back then, the idea of a moon bump, a silicone belly often used by actresses or in maternity fashion, was floated around. It sounded absurd, tabloid nonsense. But now, people are revisiting those theories and asking, was it really that absurd after all? Because with DL now putting names, dates, and signed documents into the public domain, those old videos are no longer just viral oddities. They're exhibits in what's becoming a very public trial, not in court, but in the court of public opinion. And the most damning evidence? It was never hidden. It was right in front of us the entire time. Even before DL made her claims, there was something undeniably strange about how Archie's birth was announced to the world. Royal births typically follow a script, one that's been followed for decades. The mother gives birth at a well-known hospital. The press waits outside. A brief appearance is made on the hospital steps, smiling, waving, with the newborn cradled in arms. It's ceremonial, predictable, and very public. But when it came time for Meghan and Harry to introduce Archie, that script was thrown out the window. There was no hospital name given, no photo op, no grand moment on the steps like Kate and William did with all three of their children. Instead, Harry stood awkwardly in front of a stable, not a hospital, grinning and nervously telling a camera crew that their son had arrived. It felt informal, rushed, almost like a diversion. At the time, royal watchers chalked it up to the couple's desire for privacy. But now, in the shadow of DL's claims, that announcement seems strategic, controlled, maybe even staged. Then came the birth certificate drama. When the document was finally made public, long after the expected time frame, something strange stood out. Meghan's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, was nowhere to be found. Instead, it listed her title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No legal name, no traditional listing of mother. The palace claimed it was a clerical correction, just a paperwork update. Meghan later said it was done without her consent. But again, viewed through the lens of what we now know, people began asking, was this change a calculated move to remove Meghan from the official record as the birth mother? Because if she wasn't the biological mother, and DL was, listing Meghan on a legal document could have constituted falsification. That alone could explain why the certificate was altered in such an unusual way. But perhaps the most suspicious part wasn't what was said. It was what wasn't. There was no press conference, no direct statement, no denial, just silence. A birth that should have been a joyous public occasion was handled like a covert operation, full of omissions, edits, and controlled optics. And now, years later, that silence is echoing louder than ever, especially as DL says she was there for it all, watching from the shadows, legally gagged, emotionally discarded, and now, finally speaking up. And if she's telling the truth, then Meghan and Harry didn't just hide the details of a birth. They may have staged an entire event. As the world slowly got used to the idea of Harry and Meghan starting their new life away from royal duties, questions surrounding Archie's birth certificate quietly simmered. mostly among those who pay close attention to royal records. But now, those subtle inconsistencies are being re-examined under a burning spotlight. When the birth certificate was finally released, notably later than usual, the public immediately noticed something unprecedented. Meghan's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, was completely missing. In its place, just a title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No first name, no surname, no signature confirming maternity. That might sound minor, but in the world of royal protocol and legal documentation, it's a red flag the size of Windsor Castle. Royal births are more than personal milestones. They are constitutional events. Every detail, down to the spelling of a name, is tracked, archived, and often made public to ensure transparency within the monarchy. So when Meghan's name vanished from Archie's legal birth record, theories swirled. The palace quickly stepped in, calling it an administrative adjustment, nothing more than a formality. Meghan later said the change was made without her consent, framing it as a decision taken by the institution and not something she had requested. But now, with DL's allegations coming into play, people are wondering if this wasn't a glitch, but a calculated legal maneuver. Here's the theory. If Meghan's name had remained listed as the mother, when she allegedly wasn't the biological one, the certificate might be considered legally inaccurate, or worse, falsified. Removing her name and replacing it with a title could have been a way to sidestep liability, to keep things vague enough to avoid legal blowback if the truth ever came out. And DL claims that's exactly what happened. According to her, Meghan's legal team, not the royal family, ordered the name changed to quietly correct the record without admitting wrongdoing. She even claims to have correspondence showing the legal scrambling that occurred in the weeks following Archie's birth. Backdated paperwork, revised records, and hush-hush meetings that never made it into the press. It's a theory that, once dismissed, now feels eerily plausible. And yet no one, not the palace, not Meghan, not Harry, has offered a clear explanation for why a royal birth certificate was handled with such bizarre secrecy. In a monarchy that survives on tradition and trust, even a small breach can feel like a betrayal. But this wasn't small. And the silence only made it louder. As DL's claims gain traction and the media begins to circle, Meghan and Harry have chosen a response strategy that is as puzzling as it is revealing. Total silence. No interviews, no Instagram videos, no heartfelt denials posted to a website or shared in a polished podcast. And for a couple who built their brand on telling their truth, the absence of any truth is deafening. Instead of public clarity, sources say their legal team has gone into overdrive behind the scenes, flooding media outlets with cease and desist letters, demanding coverage of DL be halted or reframed. Allegedly, even major networks that had planned to run interviews with DL were suddenly hit with last-minute legal threats, pushing executives into emergency meetings to assess risk. But here's where it gets even stranger. DL isn't backing down. Not only has she publicly stated that she's willing to testify under oath, she's offered to take a DNA test to prove her claims, under one condition, that the test is conducted by a neutral, independent party. That kind of confidence? It's rare, especially when facing off against two of the most powerful media forces in the world, the royal family and the Sussex brand. If she were lying, most people would expect her to hide, dodge questions, or offer vague statements. But DL is doing the opposite. She's pushing for court. She's demanding a platform. She's daring them to challenge her. And Meghan and Harry's response? Still nothing. No legal action against her, no restraining order, no counter-allegations, just silence. For many observers, that silence is starting to look less like strategy and more like damage control. Because if Meghan truly carried both children, wouldn't the simplest solution be to release a statement, present proof, or dismiss DL publicly? Instead, the Sussex team is playing a game of containment, trying to manage the narrative without engaging directly. But it's not working. Social media is flooded with theories, videos, and commentaries. Even mainstream outlets that once tread lightly around the couple are now sniffing around for a deeper story. And with every day that passes, the lack of denial becomes its own form of admission, at least in the public's eyes. Because in a world ruled by perception, saying nothing often speaks the loudest. While the Sussexes may be publicly silent behind palace walls, the reaction has reportedly been far from calm. According to insiders, Buckingham Palace has entered crisis management mode. not with official statements or press briefings, but with quiet meetings, legal consultations, and frantic attempts to contain a scandal they never saw coming. Why? Because DL's claims don't just challenge Meghan and Harry's credibility, they strike at the heart of the monarchy itself. Royal succession isn't just about bloodlines, it's about transparency, tradition, and trust. Every royal birth is supposed to follow strict protocol. It must be documented, confirmed, and above all, made publicly verifiable. For centuries, this has ensured that the line to the throne is seen as legitimate, not just by the crown, but by the people. And if DL is telling the truth, then that entire system was bypassed. Her claims suggest that 2 children may have been introduced into the royal bloodline without the public ever being told the truth about their origins. And that, even more than the media frenzy, is what reportedly has the palace rattled. Constitutional experts are now weighing in. Some say this situation, if proven, would create a historic precedent, one the royal family is completely unprepared for. If Archie and Lilibet were indeed born via secret surrogacy, and that surrogacy wasn't disclosed, their royal titles could be legally challenged. Their place in the line of succession, also potentially invalid. Even Queen Elizabeth's former press secretary reportedly gave a rare radio interview saying, "This would be a first, and if true, it could raise serious questions about legitimacy, inheritance, and royal protocol. The monarchy has never had to face something like this." And that's not an exaggeration, because while surrogacy isn't illegal in the UK or California, concealing it, especially in the context of royal succession, could be viewed as a deliberate deception, one that undermines centuries of ceremonial legitimacy. Sources inside the palace say advisors are quietly consulting legal historians and constitutional scholars, trying to understand what rules, if any, were broken, and whether the monarchy has any recourse if DL's story proves to be true. So far, there's no word of an official investigation. But according to leaks from staffers, a discreet internal review is already underway. Not just of Archie and Lilibet's births, but of all communications, medical records, and correspondence surrounding the events of 2018 to 2021. For the royal institution, this isn't just a PR fire, it's a potential constitutional earthquake. And as the pressure mounts on Buckingham Palace to respond, another storm is quietly brewing, this time inside Meghan and Harry's Montecito mansion. As the headlines grow louder and the legal walls begin to close in, the carefully curated image of Harry and Meghan's perfect post-royal life is reportedly starting to crack from the inside out. Multiple sources close to the couple have begun leaking troubling details about what's going on behind closed doors. According to one insider, the Montecito estate, once described as their peaceful sanctuary, has become a war zone of whispered arguments, isolation, and distrust. Staffing has reportedly been cut down dramatically. Aides once responsible for PR, home management, and security have either left or been let go. Those who remain have described the household as tense, on edge, and nothing like what it used to be. Meghan, known for her hands-on approach to brand management and media strategy, has gone quiet. No podcast episodes, no new product launches, no brand collaborations. Her highly anticipated lifestyle empire, featuring everything from skincare to home goods and wine, is reportedly stalling. Some insiders say sponsorships are quietly withdrawing. Others suggest high-profile collaborators have hit pause, waiting to see where the scandal lands. One marketing executive, who asked to remain anonymous, said it bluntly, "No one wants to be tied to a PR time bomb." And Harry, sources say he's not faring much better. He's allegedly retreated from public life, canceling informal meetings, dodging appearances, and even pulling out of planned interviews. According to one former aide, he's been unraveling behind the scenes, consumed by paranoia, questioning who around him knew what, and whether he was fully told the truth during the original surrogacy arrangements. "He's not sleeping, he's not eating, he's spiraling," said one former staffer. And he's blaming everyone, Meghan, the lawyers, even himself. The emotional toll is beginning to show. Insiders claim the couple is now sleeping in separate rooms, barely speaking except through intermediaries. And while Meghan is reportedly furious at DL for breaking her silence, she's even more enraged at Harry for not getting ahead of the story. She believes his hesitation gave the story oxygen, one source said. She thinks this could have been contained if he had acted faster. And that strain is now threatening not just their brand, but their marriage itself. The fairy tale is unraveling, and those who once championed the Sussexes as modern, relatable royals are starting to back away, slowly but visibly. Social media accounts that once praised Meghan's advocacy are scrubbing posts. Podcasts that interviewed her are deleting episodes. Celebrities who publicly supported the couple have gone silent. For a duo who built their empire on being seen, heard, and celebrated, this moment is chilling, a spotlight turning into a searchlight with nowhere left to hide. And the next move? It may not be theirs to make. As the media circus swirls and the palace holds its breath, the final blow may not come from inside Buckingham or a judge's chambers, but from the very audience that once idolized Meghan and Harry. The court of public opinion has begun to shift, and it's shifting fast. Social media polls show that trust in the Sussexes is at an all-time low. Their once devoted fan base, the people who defended their every move, reposted every heartfelt quote, and flooded comment sections with hashtags like "We love Meghan," are now demanding something very different: proof, honesty, and accountability. It's not just anonymous trolls or fringe accounts, it's everyday people, verified influencers, even former allies in the media. And when you lose control of your own story, the internet fills in the blanks. Fast. Podcasts that once praised Meghan's activism have begun quietly removing past episodes. Lifestyle blogs that once partnered with her brand are now declining to publish sponsored content. Even A-list celebrities who had once publicly aligned themselves with the Sussexes are reportedly distancing themselves behind the scenes, wary of being dragged into what's increasingly viewed as a ticking PR grenade. And at the center of it all is a woman, DL, who claims she's not seeking fame, not demanding money, but simply asking for her story to be acknowledged. She's offered to take a DNA test. She's asked for an independent hearing. She's even welcomed the idea of appearing in court. And yet, there's been no response from Meghan or Harry, not even a denial. And that silence, it's not just suspicious, it's strategic, but not in the way most people think. Some insiders believe Meghan and Harry's lawyers are actively working to delay the fallout, hoping that time will soften public interest or distract with another story. But others argue it's too late. The momentum is building. And when major networks, already rumored to have pre-recorded interviews with DL, finally release those segments, the narrative could change overnight. And not just for Meghan and Harry, but for the royal institution as a whole. Because if it's proven that the couple knowingly staged pregnancies, falsified records, or misled the monarchy, it won't just be their reputations on the line. It could trigger formal actions, including title removals, succession disqualification, or even a public royal inquiry, something no generation has seen before. The illusion of the freedom story, the one where they escape the crown to find peace and truth, is starting to crumble. And in its place, a story of control, cover-ups, and chaos. What began as whispers about a moon bump and a missing hospital press conference has snowballed into what might be the most explosive royal controversy in modern history. At the center stands a woman who refuses to stay quiet, documents in hand, face uncovered, her voice calm but unwavering. And on the other side, a prince and duchess whose once glittering post-royal life is now sinking beneath the weight of silence. Meghan and Harry were supposed to be the storybook escape, the couple who broke free from royal tradition, challenged outdated systems, and carved out a new, authentic path. But now, with their empire on shaky ground and questions about their children's legitimacy taking center stage, that narrative is beginning to look a lot more like fiction. And here's the real question. If the public believes they lied about something this fundamental, not a brand deal, not a private feud, but the very existence of their children's origins, how do they ever regain trust? How does a couple who demanded truth now survive in the shadow of deception? The palace may never confirm the full story. Meghan and Harry may never speak. And DL may never get her day in court. But one thing is certain. The damage has already been done. And as the world waits for someone, anyone, to finally speak the truth, one thing keeps echoing louder than ever. Sometimes silence doesn't protect the powerful, it exposes them.